Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Ask Dr. Zaino Live. Thank you for being here. We see there's already 25 people logged into the chat roll, which just an interesting fact. I was watching Brenda Burchard as he uses the same type of chat roll. He said usually there's about a 1-to-5 ratio on how many people are actually logged into that. And so there's probably over 100 chiropractors already on the line. We've got more coming in. If you'll scroll down below the video that you're watching, what I want you to do first is I want you to check out our social media sites, like us, share us, pin it, tweet it, all of those buttons that are below this video. Make sure that you can share this link with your associates, with your staff, and then also with other chiropractors that might follow you on those social media sites. Then right below that, like I just mentioned, is the chat roll. We're going to be taking questions from that chat roll here in just a little bit, and we have a special guest, Roberto Monaco, who's going to be helping us field those questions. So if you want to ask him, he is a powerful speaking coach, and he can help you out with those types of things. In fact, he is going to be at the 2016 Chiro Thought Leaders Seminar right here in Houston, Texas. That's going to be next month, February 26th and 27th. I know a lot of you already have your tickets. You're going to be there, and it's going to be a great time. If you haven't got your tickets yet, for you or your staff, scroll down all the way to the bottom of that screen at chirothoughtleaders.com/askdrzaino, and you can get those tickets and get it booked because it's coming up super fast. So to start this off, the way we're going to try to do it today is Roberto's going to just help us with a couple of tips and strategies on public speaking. He's going to be speaking at this seminar on how to create lifetime patience with group presentations. So Roberto, I'm going to turn it over to you for a couple of minutes and let us know what are you speaking out at the seminar and how can we implement that today?
Cool. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with us, Dr. Z, Dr. Tabor. Super excited to be here. When I go back to my life and I look, I've been speaking since 2002. Started my career at Tony Robbins for 6 years. 2008, I started Influenceology. So I have, since 2008 until now, 8 years for a company, and I work with 31 industries. Super cool. Being the last almost 4 years chiropractors now has been probably 80% of my business. Super powerful. And I think about what I've done so far and the people that I help and the people that are using the stuff that I share. I realized in my career that the top 3% of every industry, and I challenge you, you can try to name one industry, the top 3% of any industry, they're out there speaking, they're doing videos, they're doing seminars, they're doing TV, they're doing radio, they're moving masses. And even like, for example, internet marketers, right? They have this big convention coming in San Diego this week here, and they're all internet marketing professionals in an event, and guys using public speaking to teach them. Think about it. And public speaking, if we stop and think about it, has been a tool that has been around for 2,500 years. I haven't created public speaking. And if you think about, we get so fired up about, hey, give me the ultimate tool, give me the secret sauce. In my perspective, I want to use a tool that has been around for 2,500 years, the #1 marketing tool, and guess what? The next 100 years, if you're going to be practicing for that long, you're going to be using, which is your mouth. You know, open your mouth, and people take action. And so that's what I love about public speaking. And I feel that as a doctor, I always ask this: what caused someone to leave you? I mean, I ask them, why? Because I see, you know, I have 30 new patients a week and and 100 patients a month, so they tell me all these numbers, and then, man, I should be seeing, you know, 10,000 people now. So I ask them, why did they leave? Why did they leave? And there's always two reasons. Either A, didn't get the care, which is not my job because I'm not a chiropractor. That's your job to become the best doctor as possible. Number two, they didn't get the principle, because if they get the principle, like I got the principle, yesterday I went to Dr. Ryan Hummel, got adjusted. Now I don't have a condition. Now I look good, feel good, but I know I was subluxated, so I went yesterday. So the only reason people leave you is either A, your care is not good, or B, then you don't know how to communicate the principle. And the mistake that most of us we as a chiropractor, by the way, I say us, I'm not a doctor, but I'm part of the group now after almost 4 years, is that we fail to communicate and we fail to consistently communicate. That's why I'm so passionate about inspiring you, the doctor, to become a master communicator, because I know with certainty, 100% certainty, that after all these years, since 2002, that I have, and I have 11,000 hours of public speaking coaching, 11,000, is that I haven't seen any talk, any communication, any dinner talks, doctor's reports, stress talks, uh, ergonomic talks, nutrition talks, detox talks that cannot be better, any. So one of the things that I want you guys to really stop and think tonight, and I hope to inspire you, is to use public speaking presentation as a competitive tool. Right? And use, like, you know what, I'm going to master my talk, I'm going to master my DR, I'm going to master my dinner, I'm going to focus on it. And doing the talk 100 times is not mastering, because a lot of doctors that I coach, have the honor to coach, they've been speaking for 10 years. They've done probably like 500 talks, but they're doing the same talk over and over and over again. And if you look, one characteristics of, like, for example, the best football players or basketball players, I love NBA and I follow, you know what they do after the game? First thing they do, they watch the film. And the question I have for you is, who's watching your film consistently, for real? Right? Because do you have a trained professional to watch your film to see your blind spots? If you don't have a trained professional, then I will tell you that you're losing money, impact, purpose every single time you open your mouth, period. Right? So I hope to inspire you to work on that, because that's why I'm always studying. I study anything from argumentation to homiletics to NLP to psychology to behavioral economics. Because why? Because I know after 4,000 talks, I know that I'm like between my potential as a communicator, between 0 to 100, honestly, I'm like 5%. So and that's all I do. So I really hope to inspire you to have this fire to say, man, it's so easy. When I walk in a room, by the way, not me, for you to have this conversation, that when you walk in a room and you know with certainty that you're going to move people like a clock, speaking is one of the coolest things that you can do. So what I'll be talking about in our seminar coming up, I'll be talking about primarily 5 things that I teach. And I'm going to condense 30 hours into an hour, but I'm going to hit 5 things. Number 1, I hope to give some strategies to help communicate with even more certainty and confidence. I will tell you that it's possible for you to become a very confident presenter. And if you love chiropractic, and you don't like speaking, you have a problem. Think about that. I love chiropractic, but I don't love to speak about chiropractic. You have a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not pointing fingers. I'm saying there's an issue. And if you're open to it, is that the issue is your ego, is your fear, is limitation, whatever the conversation is. So the first thing I'm going to be doing in Houston is to clear that up. And I'm going to share some ideas to really clear that up with psychology. So I move you from like, I hate speaking, to a lot of people, most chiropractors, because they have to speak, they say, no, Roberto, I don't have fear, but I'm saying love it. Because when you love speaking, when you love presenting, you love to influencing, then you get excited about learning, implementing new ideas. So I'll be talking, that's one thing I'll be talking about, this realm of psychology of presenting. The second thing Dr. Tabor will be covering in our event is, I call presentation structure, is how to organize our talk. Now, Dr. Z and I work several times. He has an amazing product, the dinner, the DR. I'm going to give you kind of like a short version of a talk that you can go in and use it to be effective. The third thing that I'm going to be doing is some secrets on how to deliver your talk, because you can have, for example, amazing mindset, you can have a killer talk, but then if you're boring, if you have a lot of subluxation in delivery, then you won't be able to move people. And one of the things that I realize is that When you go from the presenter, from thinking to feeling, the audience goes from feeling to willing to take action. And part of that is that you want to be able to feel your message. I always ask myself, Dr. Tabor, when I'm presenting, I ask myself, am I feeling, this is a great question for you, am I feeling the message? Am I feeling this right now? And if I'm not level 10, I ask myself, what has to happen for me to what? Feel this way? There's a great question. And if I'm, let's say because I know some of you, sometimes you are adjusting, sometimes you are tired, sometimes your CA left early and you're tired, you had a long day, you woke up early, and now you have to do a talk, and I know stuff, I'm the same way. But sometimes another tip that you can do is before your talks, me personally, I'll do break like an hour or half an hour. And that half an hour or 1 hour between your talks and before your talks is just for you to put yourself in this powerful magnetic state. And that's what I do. Because a lot of people, and I was doing an event last week, and I saw these speakers, was a multi-day speaker, and I saw these guys freaking out, looking at their notes before, trying to go over the PowerPoint, half an hour before, change their talk, change the close. I'm like, this is so stupid. You don't do this. The half an hour before, you want to be like, dude, am I in this magnetic, influential, persuasive state of mind? Ask this question. And Roberto, how do I get there? Well, I get there through my incantations. Right? I get there to something that I do where I literally put myself, I close my eyes, and I think about people that I love in my life, like my mom, my wife, and I really think about happy memories. And once I'm there, I'm like, and I look in silent, I don't say this out loud, but I'm looking at the people in the audience. Usually there's someone introducing me, and I go, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Because, so that's something that I do. I put myself in this loving state. Then the second thing I do a lot of anchoring exercises that I do. I just have movements, and I unleash, if you know anything about NLP or anchoring, I create this very powerful mindset of certainty. So I combine love, certainty. The third thing that I do is empathy, Dr. Tabor, because if you have, look at it, think about it, okay? Write these 3 words down. This, by the way, if only do this from this call, life changing. Promise you. I promise you. Okay?
Awesome.
Before your talks, put yourself in a loving state. Why? Because I believe love is the strongest force that you have. Number 2, in a certain state. And you can do this through incantations, through, I am the voice. When I was working for Tony Robbins, I did the I am the voice, I'll lead, not follow, I'll believe, no doubt. So I have this really, you can do anything. I'm a great speaker, I'm an influencer, I'm going to change lives. Whatever your incantation is, so you do that. And the third thing that I do, I put myself in a place of having empathy for the audience. Empathy is like, feel what they are feeling, which is really hard to do. So I'm like, I'm going to try to put myself in their shoes. You know, their parents, they're here. It's evening. Some of them working. Some of them are figuring out how they're going to pay the bills this month. Some of them, their kids are taking drugs. Some of them have something very, and I'm really trying to feel them, to put myself in their shoes. So because in my mind, here's my mindset, if I have empathy for them, if I'm come from a place of love, of like, dude, I'm a force. No excuse. I'm going to move them. And I'm so certain because fear does not creep in a body full of certainty. So I'm like, certainty, love, and empathy. And I'm telling you that you walk in a room, you just walk, and people feel you. You'll be like, well, and I can tell you, when I walk in a room, so many people in my career, people say, man, when you walk in a room, I was going to buy whatever you told me because it's just your energy was different. And most of us, what kind of energy walking in, Dr. Tabor? We are like adjusting 5 minutes before. We don't prepare mentally, and we just show up to speak. That's why sometimes the first rejection or the first someone look at us kind of weird, whatever they feel, it's kind of like they influence us instead of us influence them. So one of the things that I hope that you get out of this call, this hangout tonight, is that ask yourself, every presentation that I do, lunch and learn, dinner, doctor's reports, stress talks, I'm going to put myself, not like, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Every single time, half an hour before, 15 minutes before, an hour before, I'm going to put myself in this magnetic state. My state is so powerful that they cannot deny. And what I realize is that they're going to buy your state or you're going to buy their state. You're going to influence them, they're going to influence you. And to be influential, you got to be influenced. To be convincing, you have to be convinced by your state. And I'm telling you, because if you think about it, the message, man, you leave the message. And I always tell people, you are the message. You spend 8 hours for the last 10 years or 5 years talking about chiropractic. I mean, how often you talk about function, about subluxation, about the spine, and about the top 3 killers every single day?
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of like sometimes it's just because we are showing up in this weak state. And you cannot have a strong presentation with a weak state. You just can't.
That's true. Yep.
And how do I know that? For sure. Because when I was working for Tony, I was the only guy who had a thick accent that sometimes people can understand. But I sold more than anybody because I had that state, and I still have that state. That's something that there's no excuse if you're tired, if you have a headache, one thing that you know. So whatever is necessary for you to be there, ask yourself, am I level 10? If not, ask yourself, what has to happen for me to be level 10? So, recap here, Houston. Psychology, structure, delivery. The fourth thing is influence. I'll be covering. Just an influence and persuasion is so powerful, Dr. Tabor, is because people don't realize is this invisible force that influences you don't know. Let me give you like a very silly example. I'm drinking kombucha. Have you drank kombucha before, Dr. Tabor?
Yes, I love it. Yep.
You love it, right? So in this bottle, I was reading kombucha, and if you start looking at the label, you don't realize how many influence strategies in the label are influence you. For example, power of 3. All right? That means like when you organize a message in chunks of 3. They wrote synergy, organic, and raw. 3. Another one here. Let's see. Organic acids, aminos, electrolytes. 3. So if you look, I'm not going to be redundant here, but if you look, so they have these little tweaks, influence strategies that is invisible, that you're not paying attention to. Another one, alliteration. You know, when you start, you use the same letter in the beginning of a sentence. For example, they say here, reawaken, rebirth, repurpose, redefine. So they use power of 3, alliteration, 2 strategy, 3rd strategy. You know, in this part here, they say, I want to read to you guys, in 1995, I started making organic raw kombucha. They go in a personal story in the label of the bottle. Right? Nice. So see, in this, it's all these influence strategies that you use in a talk, power of 3, alliteration, personal story, repetition. Right? Repetition. How many times you use the word subluxation in your talk? Now, the owner of this, it's called JT. In this label has 5 times, if you read it, JT, repetition, repetition. Symbol, right? Symbol, they came before language, symbolic. That means that when you see something, influencers are not thinking about it. They have several little hearts here. Anyway, so this is kind of a strategy that once you have a powerful psychology, once you have a killer talk, once you're able to deliver your talk, then the 4th level, that's when I work with very advanced speakers, guys who have done over 500 talks or so. I get these little strategies that I can see. Why? Because I've been studying them for a long time. And I say, how about add this, add this, add this, add this, add this. And when you combine, when you stack influence strategies, your conversions start going up, right? Because they're proven little principles. But I don't start there. Why? Because they're not going to work if you don't have a good psychology structure delivery. And the last thing that I'll try to give some ideas in Houston, I'm going to try to do everything in an hour, do magic here, is to share some ideas on how to get speaking gigs, because a lot of people, they're amazing speakers, and they say, man, how do I get gigs? And then I have a whole new program in our classes now that I teach. I spend 2.5 hours talking, but I'm going to get some ideas and give them there. So
awesome, man. That's good stuff. That's powerful stuff. And we haven't even started on the call tonight, and we're already dropping powerful bombs there. Appreciate that. Awesome. Well, I have a couple questions myself, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to let some of the thought leaders out there, our members, speak and ask. So let's go ahead and Dr. Zaino, you have anything you want to add before we start asking questions?
Well, I mean, just the perfect example when Roberto was talking about, like, how many of you have drinking kombucha? You know, I mean, I drink
Yep.
it all the time. Or
Yep.
just you out there, just an example. So you see, I'm sitting there seeing that Roberto, when he looks at that label, because Roberto sees things through a lens from his experience and
Yep.
his wisdom. So you didn't know any of that. You didn't even, maybe you looked at it, you appreciate it, but just shows you. So if he saw that in a label, what do you think he's going to do when he looks at your talk?
Yep.
I mean, do you understand me? Like, so if, you know, I was always a pro, I always look over my talk and look over my talk, but I'm looking over my talk through my lens.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the thing is, when Roberto looks at the talk, you know, he can pull 5 things out of a label. He can pull 5 things out of the first line you say, or how you're standing, or this. So it's like just to show you that if you could just humble yourself and say, listen, there is so many different levels that you may not see, or blind spots that you don't realize, and those little errors that you make every talk add up and add up and add up to where, you know, it changes your entire life and practice and then your talent.
Yep.
And so that was a perfect example. I appreciate Roberto doing that. But then I took from that, well, if you could do that with a bottle of kombucha, what can you do with your talk? You know?
Yeah.
And there's more. And there's more. I mean, there's a level.
Go. Come on. Just, let's go. Just to show you. Yeah.
Oh no! Like for example, one thing that what they do, and there's a law of psychology called recency, primacy and recency. It's coming first and last. And one of the texts they use, they end with a pure love exclamation point, because that's the last thing that you read, right? So you end like, you know, when you have an emotional close in a talk, and
Yep.
the little say pure love and the exclamation point, so that finish up on a high note. Obviously, it's a label. They're trying to communicate the message, you know.
Nice.
So there's all these little tricks that you don't see. You'll be like, oh yeah. Right? So it's like, okay, but another thing, right? The word, and I'm going to try to show the word trilogy here.
Yeah.
And trilogy means what? What? So you have Star Wars trilogy or whatever. What does trilogy mean? There are what? Three stories.
Yep.
Now, I'm drinking one kombucha, right? And coach is like, trilogy. And coach is like, we have a need for completion. What are the other two? Well, now go to the grocery store and see. I try like more than 20 different flavors. I don't know, like so many. There's one chia seeds and
Yep.
the ginger one, and they're like, I love them. The citrus one, trilogy. I'm like, oh, there's more. But
In fact,
I'm
Roberto,
not making. So it's stuff like this, and I love it because I mean look. This is I'm like they influence me, and I love it because I love kombucha. It's good for me. Like chiropractic. Like chiropractic is good for me, for my life. Kombucha is good for me. Right, probiotic. So
I'm gonna have to go get one tonight.
yeah. So now I'm like, this is good stuff. Well, thank you for influencing me.
Yeah.
So and that's what your patient to be like. Thank you for bringing under chiropractic lifestyle. Right? They gotta appreciate. And if you think if you're a doctor, you're thinking, no, man, I can do this only with my care. If my care is good enough, I cannot communicate. That's a wrong advice. You know, that's wrong belief to have because look, Dr. Z, the best doctor in the world. How many talks have you done, bud? You know, for chiropractic talk between? I know maybe you never counted, but between dinners.
No, we did like 3,800 or something.
3,800.
It was 3,500 like when we figured it out. So.
Yeah. So think
it's
about
on
that. 30, not 35, not 3,500. No, I'm sorry, not 250. It's 3,500. That's a lot speaking. So I had a doctor the day ask me when I look. He said, super nice guy. I love the guy. He said, man, when I look at my talk and Z, man, is like day and night. And I said, how many talks do you think he has done? That's exactly my question. Because, by the way, but that's not an excuse for us to say, make a decision yesterday, if possible tonight, say, I'm going to work on my craft. Because one thing I know about chiropractors, most likely, you plan to be in business 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, at some capacity, and then why not massively start working today? So that's the idea.
Right on.
All right.
Awesome. Well, let's get to the first question for you, Roberto, right here. Let's see. Bob Pike, he says, I once heard that BJ used to do his presentations in front of a room of brooms. And he says, Roberto, what do you recommend as far as training for a DC crafting their signature presentation? Thank you for sharing your expertise with us.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Now, there's a bit. This is a line from Tony that I always remember. He said one time in a training, "You get rewarded in public by how you practice in private." And I'm like, "Oh, that's so good." You get rewarded in public by how you practice in private. So here's what I do. I love the Bloom idea. So I never heard that before. Thanks. I'm actually, if you could send me the reference, I would love to put in my class. But thanks for the reference. I have in my office, I have a bunch of chairs, and I put chairs, and I literally put chairs, and I'm like, and I because force and things. So as I'm rehearsing my talk out loud, I try to focus at 3 to 5 seconds in a book, for example. I'm talking here, I'm connecting here, then I go there. So that is not the subjects, the things you have, but how you connect with them. Because one thing that I know for sure, and if you look any tape or look the next presentation, most doctors, they don't use eye contact. They go like this, they're scanning the room, they're here, they're here, they're here, they're here. And imagine you go on a one-on-one presentation and your patient like this, or like this, or like this, right? So in a rehearsal, I'm rehearsing eye contact. So I'm like, so I'm telling a story, I look at the chair or the room in this case, and you go in and you connect 4 or 5 seconds there, and I don't move my head. Then I do a quick pause, and I go here, and I talk boom, 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 boom. And I'm so fanatic about presentation that I clap for myself, for real. I go, big hand for Roberto Mono, yay! And I go like, people like, this guy's nuts, by myself. But I'm like, I'm going in, I shake someone's hand, the whole process, and I pause, and I go. Now, so that's one thing that I do. For every talk that I do, like for example, the Houston talk that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to rehearse 7 times. 7 times, at least. You know. Now, Roberto, some things going to be new. Some things I'm going to use some of my old stories. I still going to do. Why? Because I want to make sure my timing is right. Because I can go there. I do a 3-day class, 30 hours. So now how come put the best in 1 hour? So I got to practice. How many times? 7 hours. So here's what I do. I'll tell you how I'm going to do in 2 weeks. I'm gonna create an outline for you, which I'm gonna bring to Houston, so you can take notes. And on mine one, I'm gonna have my stories, whatever the content, and then I'm gonna lock myself in my office. And I'm gonna go time, boom, big hand for Roberto Morgan, boom, boom, boom. And I'm gonna look around the chairs and things in my office, and I'm gonna go exactly 7 times the whole talk. And what happens is I do one time, it's gonna be like 1 hour and 20. I'm like, man, I gotta cut this. Second time, 1 hour and 10. It's not good yet. Third time, 55. I'm like, okay, that's good, because I know usually when in a live crowd, you're going to have some participation, and then I do it. By the 4th time, I don't want to do anymore. Then when I get tired, say, no, that's when I got to push through it, and I do it. Now, here's what happens. But right before my talk, I'm literally the horse. You know in the gates, you have the horse above, and you have the gates that control the horse. They go like, come on, let me go, open the gates.
Yeah.
I'm like, I cannot wait. The purpose is so magnetic, it's pulling me like, I gotta go. Because I know, whoever's gonna be in the room is gonna have a transformation experience. I don't speak to inform, I speak to transform. So it's a combination of preparation, the certainty, the love, so I love that. Another thing that I recommend to you is have someone who's qualified to see what you can't see. Remember the kombucha bottle here? Most people can see. Work someone, record the talk. After it's good, say, hire someone who's good. Say, hey man, here's my talk. Can you help me see what I can't see? All right? And then you can go to the next level.
Awesome, man. Good answer. Very cool. You ready for another question?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. All right, so got here. Roberto, how much of the preparation is mental and emotional? He says he remembers the first time that he was interviewed for television, and he said his spirit contracted into a what-if state. He goes, I feel like that I know the message is far bigger than just me, but how do we silence the ego? How do we silence the ego and profess our knowing?
Okay, perfect. I love that. So I would say, so if you're doing TV or if you're doing podcast or interview, then you're going to try to do the best you can to control the environment, meaning that you're going to send questions ahead, because doing TV is like, sound bites, you got to speak in 30 seconds, but I would say, so you try to do the best you can to control the environment. The same thing in a talk you're going to prepare. Preparation is key. I realized in my career that because of my accent, because I've done 4,000 talks, and I probably made a mistake in all of them. Probably, if you watch the replay here, says a bunch of things wrong, right? So because of that, I decided that regardless of how people are gonna perceive me, I'm gonna make a decision to give my all every single time I speak. So how do you do that? You change your rule. Right now, you have a rule about maybe rejection, for example, or maybe a rule of like not being loved. We all have a rule, okay? Because, for example, if you go to TV and you kind of like your spirit, kind of get contracted. Why? Because you have a rule unconsciously. So you never consciously set up this rule ever. You unconsciously did. Unconsciously have a rule for rejection. And this is so profound. I'm gonna say to you because it can liberate a lot of people here. I think it's profound. Ultimately, we all want to be loved and liked, right? So that's a need we have. But at the same token, ask yourself, how come someone can go in and give 10 talks and get a bunch of no's and don't feel impacted, and the same person gives a bunch of talks, get the same amount of no's, and come home crying? How is that possible? It's because we have unconsciously a rule. And I learned this during a coaching call because I had this coaching client, and he was not a chiropractor, he was a financial guy, and he had this huge fear of rejection. And I asked this question, say, what has to happen for you to feel rejected? I just asked that. And he like, what do you mean? I was like, what has to happen for you to feel rejected? And he said, well, every time, because you see, now I'm trying to bring the unconscious rule about rejection to his conscious mind. And he said, well, I never thought about that, but thinking about it, when I walk in a room and someone look at me weird, then I feel rejected. So I'm like, okay, how often you're gonna walk in a room and someone's gonna look at you weird? How often? Every single time. Yeah. So how you change? So you gotta change rejection. So when you do interviews, when you do a radio, podcast, or speaking, you unconsciously you have a rule. You do. We all have it. So it's not like if I have it. No, we all have it. Most of us are not conscious. So the question that I have for you is this: what has to happen for you to feel rejected? Because I guarantee when a one-on-one, speaking one-on-one, for example, you may not feel like your ego is on top of your purpose, right? So like, I feel, or maybe, can you remember a time, I'm trying to coach him through it. Sure. Can you remember a time when you felt on fire and your ego wasn't on top of your purpose, right? Of course. So you see, in that setting, is okay, but then you change the setting, you felt weird, why? You change your rule. Mm-hmm. So my question is like, so for me, I come up with this very stupid and silly rule. Guys, I know it's silly, stupid, but it works for me. I said, look, I only feel rejected when 7 billion people look at me at the same time and say, dude, you suck. Then, only then I feel rejected. Now, I may ask, no, Roberto, but what if 6 billion people look at, I don't feel rejected, man. Because it's my rule. I know it's stupid, I'm exaggerating, but think about it. Think about it. So what is the difference between, I went on a talk, there's 10 people, 8 sign up, which is great, 2 call me these words. Now you go back, what's the difference between that rule and you got pissed off because someone said something negative about you, then my rule. Who creates your own rule of rejection? You do. So I hope that the secret, there's a lot of strategy. One of them is to change your rule and change to anything that empowers you. And number 2, I believe that when we feel uncomfortable, when we feel awkward, is because we are making the presentation about us, Mm-hmm. Kind of like this. Let me show you something. Hold on. Can you see the spotlight here? There's a big light here, right? Can you see this? Mm-hmm. All right. I'm doing some acting here, right? Check it out. If I get this lamp and go, how do I look? How do I sound? Am I good enough? Da, 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 right? And now it's hard. When I change the spotlight and I move them away from me, the light is gone. And that is the same thing happens with purpose. Focus. When you have your focus on you, how do I look? Am I gonna be judged right now? I'm on national television. I have to the right. You have this pressure. Then fear grows, right? And it's hard for the purpose to come out. When you change the focus and you put in the audience, like I changed the lamp, now it's there, it's not me. And you realize that every communication you do is always about moving the audience from point A to point B. And focus is really powerful because whatever you focus on expands. So the idea, ultimately, you change your rule, change your focus, and you're going to allow the purpose shine, I promise you.
Wow. What an awesome answer, man. That was very valuable. That's a priceless answer right there. I love that. So sometimes in the Ask Dr. Zaino live show, we switch back and forth between topics, and and so let's see. We've got a question for Dr. Zaino, and then Roberto, you may want to chime in and answer as well. So she says, "Hi, Dr. Zaino. I was just curious, since you wake up early, what time or when do you go to sleep? I have young children, as you do, and how do you manage some nights when they wake up and then they try to get up early?"
When the kids do or when I do?
Yeah, the kids do.
Well, my kids go to bed after I go to bed. Like, so Justice and Titus, they're just chiropractic babies. We start the going to bed routine around 10:30 with them, and it takes them about an hour because they got to go upstairs, and because they're 3 and 9. And when it's time to go to bed, they become like best friends, and they're all like, they got to play. They play all types of games, and they act, and they put on a show because they don't want to go to bed. So, and then, that's Whitney's responsibility. I go downstairs and I sleep in the bedroom. So I'm always in bed by 10, definitely. And so the kids, well, because Justice, he's homeschooled. So he goes to school from 11 to 1 or 2. And Titus, he gets homeschooled too. So,
nice.
I mean, they wake up, but it's totally, I'm the wrong person to ask, but that's our lifestyle. We're okay with it. Those kids, when they want to go to bed, they go to bed, and but they've always been, for 9 years, my wife's been trying to get Justice to go to bed at 7 or 8, and he's 10:30. He's probably 10:30 to 11:30 they go to bed.
Yeah.
They sleep till about 9 o'clock, 9:10.
Right on. Yeah, I think I always call the first couple years is boot camp. Man, I don't care what kind of parent you are or what happens. It's boot camp. You got to work through it. And
there's an understanding, like Whitney knows that, in the household, she knows that I have to be a certain way. I got to get my certain sleep to do what I have to do.
Yeah.
But then her job is really, the mom, the wife, the kids. So because she might not click in and click out somewhere, like she has a full-time job with the kids. So we know there's that understanding, like, hey, I got to get my rest, go to sleep because I got work tomorrow, and she knows I have to be rested up in a certain way. So there's a mutual respect, so she doesn't feel like she's all alone or I'm abandoning her. Like, she knows at 10 I'm in bed, whether those kids are in bed or not.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank God for wives. Even Gina, she's a chiropractor, and she's just been, not practicing as much because she's devoted her time to the kids, which is awesome, I think. So great question, though. And let's go ahead and we'll move on. There's 2 questions, Roberto, right in a row that they're almost the exact same question. So obviously there's someone who really wants to know this. William and Juan, they both kind of ask, I'm curious, what's Dr. Roberto's pregame state changer routine? What does it look like? So they want to know about your pregame presentation routine.
Okay, cool. Perfect. I had a crazy January. I was 3 weekends in a row speaking, so I use a lot of my game. So I tell one story. I had an event in San Francisco, and then I flew to San Francisco in Vegas 10:30 in the morning. And then the next day, Saturday morning, I had to speak. So I wasn't feeling it. All right. So the first thing that I do, I go. By the time I get in a hotel, I ate something, a little salad. Was all midnight. Now I gotta wake up 8 o'clock to go and speak. So I honestly was not feeling. I'm like, man, I'm tired, jet lag plane, and I gotta do this. People see the audience doesn't care. So here's what I did. Number one thing they do, I go work out. And even if it is a half an hour workout, even if I just wake up and I force myself to do some type of state change. So I do that. Then I usually have I'm working out and I do some cardio. Then I'm bringing my notes. I'm just kind of like familiarizing my talk, and then I get ready. Then the other thing that I do incantations. Second thing I do, and I do them hard. I do them like to turn like when I feel it. Because I work for Tony for so long, 6 years, and I love his incantation. I'm the voice. There's a clip on YouTube. If you type it up, Tony Robbins, I'm the voice. Now I'm the voice. I'll lead, not follow, and I do that. And that one gets me going because I'm so anchored to that. Then I have a playlist. So that's the second thing I do. Then the third thing that I do is I have a playlist on my Spotify called Unleashing, and I listen and I put my headsets and I listen to like the Last Mohicans, for example. The Last Mohicans.
Nice.
So now I have like, I really like there's like, and I'm like, and now I'm like, that person who was tired an hour and a half ago is gone. So now I'm like, now I have that. Then I go in and then I go in, something that I always do, it's super powerful. I always connect with people, my audience. I connect with, not everybody, with a feel. Hey, how's it going? How we doing? Especially people who do never see me speak. I say, hey, man, in the context of speaking, what would you like to learn today? What's the one thing, I always ask question, what's the one thing that will be life-changing for you? Because now, I mean, you see, I set up the context. I say, look, in the context of speaking, persuasion, influence, what's the one thing you want to learn today? And they say, I want to learn how to do X, Y, Z. Obviously, I already have that in my presentation because I prepare, but that's going to give me certainty, connection, the audience. Then after connect with people, I want to make sure I'm set up. And then I go back to my room. I leave the room, and I go and I done incantations. Then I do anchoring. It's stuff that I do where I go. I really have I have more than 5 different ways to get there, but basically, anchoring means that every time in a high emotional state and you do something, gets linked in your brain. So all I have to do, I close my eyes and I squeeze my hand like this, and I literally, I have this wave of energy, like of certainty in my body. Boom. That's what I do, and I do that. It's called anchoring. Basically, anchoring. I remember a time in my life when it felt unstoppable. I remember what I saw, I felt, what I heard, the conversations. And then when I create this emotion, a lot of times, it's really strong in my body, I create a trigger. And one of my triggers is I squeeze my hand. So I do that. And then another thing that I do, I put myself in this loving state. As I told you before, I always think about my wife and my mom. And then I have this loving state. And once I have it, and then I literally usually have someone speaking or someone introduce me. When they're doing that, the audience doesn't see me, right? They're looking at the someone in front of the room, and I'm like, I literally go, I love you, I love you, I love you, and I'm hitting as many people as I can, because I know, even though I don't know them, it's like as a human being, I appreciate them being there. And then I look at people like, man, look at that person there. It's like he's here. I try to have empathy for their goals. They invest in money, invest in time. They flew. They're away from the family. So now my state is like is so resourceful. State cannot be denied. Yeah. And when I walk in a room, and my psychology going in, I say, man, I'm ready to unleash. I'm gonna free these people right now. And I have zero, and this is not an arrogant thing or a cockiness thing, it's just a state of like, I'm here to serve them. I want to move these people, move them. Like they haven't moved for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so that's my routine that I do.
That's awesome. That's like a professional athlete, man. You have
yeah. Well, because you know what it is. People don't realize. Do I need to do this for my talk? No. Can I be there in a moment? Yes. But then here's the question. Let's say, obviously, if you're listening to us right now, I'm assuming that you guys are gonna go to the Houston seminar. The Carrot Top Leader is gonna be awesome. Just go. All right, go. If you have a ticket, get one right now. Just go. So when you go there, and let's say you wanna see the speakers and you wanna see me, do you want me to be at 100% or 95% or 98%?
Right.
You want 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole state thing is like, probably if I speak at 98%, you wouldn't notice, but I know. And then then if it's almost like I was coaching this doctor, very successful doctor too, and he taught me a principle that's really cool. So I gave him all this homework, right? And I was expecting him to do in 2 weeks. Within couple days, he returned the homework ready. And then I said, man, that's a lot of work, man. And because he done so fast, he said, Roberto, that is not a lot of work. Work for me is promote a talk, go to a talk, speak, and close half the room, and allow half the room go to the medical system, walk into drugs and surgery. Now, for me, that's work.
Mm-hmm.
So change my mindset about what work means. So for me, create this routine is not work. I'm a professional. That's what I do, and I'll tell you this: if there's no talk that I give that I don't have my prep. It's kind of like when you take shower every single day, you brush your teeth. Why? You get an adjustment every week. This is like it became who I, because I know it's so. Your state is everything.
Yeah.
And that's my routine.
Awesome, man. It's powerful. Well, we'll start winding down. I want to ask a quick question that somebody was asking for Dr. Zaino. What kind of tables do you use in your office?
I use Omni tables. Omni drop tables. They're great.
I agree.
What do you got, Tabe? You got those too?
Omni. I won't ever use anything else. I love them. Absolutely love them. Awesome. All right, Roberto, let's field you. I don't know how long you want to go, but let's go one more question here, okay? All right. I have difficulty remembering things when I'm in front of an audience. I get mental blocks. Do you have any suggestions in overcoming this, as it prevents me from doing talks?
Okay. Well, the first thing that if you're a chiropractor, I'd love to invite you. Can I talk about? We have Dr. Tabor. If you put a little link here,
I'll put the link below.
We have an event specific. I'll answer your question right now. We have an event on. We have the event 3 times this year more, which for chiropractor only. I've been doing this public speaking events called Influence for the Front. Most likely you guys heard this before, and I've done 30 events, and now it has been for everybody could come. So because the last 3.5 years we have had a big influence the chiropractic industry. I happens to sometimes I have 80% chiropractors. So my business and I did a decision last December, and they say, you know what, moving forward, we're going to have 2 tracks. One, the same class, both chiropractic examples, and one I call business speakers. So if a chiropractor is just an awesome program, spend 30 hours, and it's the coolest program because I spend the 5 big promises that I promise you, money back guarantee if you don't achieve this. Number 1, you're going to walk away a confident presenter. Number 2, I'm going to give a structure of a health talk that you can go in and close people. And people who leave this event, I had a girl who never spoke, close. There was like 9 people in the room. She closed 13. That wrote a big testimonial, over 100% with that thing. And I give her step by step, teach strategies on how to deliver master charisma and influence. I go over influence strategies and how to book up talks. Now, how to get speaking gigs is brand new. So I just developed for January class that we had last month and one for this class. So make sure you go. And I have a very special thing I'm doing tonight only. I'm gonna give you this offer, and you have 48 hours. That's it. All right. So if you go, Dr. Tabor is gonna put the link there.
Yep.
And you can go get the ticket for anybody who sign up. And then after you register for the class, you just email me at roberto@influenceknowledge.com. roberto@influenceknowledge.com. 48 hours of this recording. And then what I'm going to give you guys, I'm going to give a $750 gift, which is an hour coaching call with me to work on any issue you have in terms of speaking. That's my fee. I charge $750 an hour for presentation coaching. So you register and you email to me, and then we can work on your personal story. We can work on closing. We can work on whatever you want to do, just for you being a part of a Cartot leader. So I'm telling you that an hour alone will change your career. Promise you that. Then you have the class. So anyway, so how you remember that? I feel part of it. Part of it is the fear and uncertainty. Okay, which is that when you have this, when you feel uncertain, creates uncertainty. We get nervous and too focused on us. Right? So that way, because you're trying to speak in an unresourceful state, cause you to have a poor memory. The second thing is that, and I work this with a couple of coaching clients. I have a lot of people that for them to go in and speak, they have to know word by word. And I cannot tell you how painful it is to memorize word by word a half-an-hour talk. How do I know? Because when I started working for Tony Robbins, it's mandatory to memorize a 45-minute talk. And you know how long does it take to memorize a 45-minute talk word by word? It takes, for the average person, 10 days of doing nothing. A 45-minute talk is around 25-page script. Takes unless you have acting training.
Wow.
All right? Takes 10 days. You don't do not 10-hour day. Word by word. It's insane. So that's why a lot of most people have a belief that I gotta memorize word by word, and then you forget, you freak out. So the solution of this is a couple things. Number one, understand that you're gonna forget things. Like I probably forgot things tonight, and you don't even know. All right? You don't know. How do you know I forgot? You don't know. I forgot. Right. Every talk, I forget some stuff. You don't know. And if you forget something, it's okay. Number one. Number two, so that's number one rule. They don't know. So, and you are going to forget. Speakers forget.
Right.
Right? Number one. Number two, instead of having a script in the beginning, I recommend to have an outline. And one thing that you can do that is very professional, which I do all the time, I'm going to be doing in Houston. I'm not going to use PowerPoint. I developed like a little worksheet, like let's say the 5 questions you got to ask yourself to improve your health, or the three keys to unlock your health. So you create the outline, and you pass your little professional handout before, and guess what? Your handout is complete. All right? So you have your answers in yours. So then you say, well, the first thing you want to talk about is what is health, for example. And you look at there, okay, you have the answer. Health is function. But let's say I forgot about the second question. Be like, hold on, let me get some water. Then you go like this. Well, the second question is,
nice.
Well, and I had developed that because I done 4,000 talks. One time I had an occasion where I forgot everything. I was dehydrated. I have the story, and I walk in this room, and I was late. There was a whole story, and I don't get into here. But I remember I felt like someone unplugged me from the wall, and I'm like here, like people like, okay, we're to go. I'm like, and not even the question, man, I forgot my whole script. Not even that question. So I went blank. I went cold, like for maybe a minute. People start laughing. So since then, and just notice what I do. I always have a hard copy of my talk, always. Even if I'm doing PowerPoint, which nowadays I don't do much, I always have it, and I have a glass of water. It's there. So I'm talking, so I forget something, but hold on, I'm doing some water. I go here. It's done. And then, so that's going to help. That's strategy. So change, number one, solve the problem. Number one, the belief that you're going to forget, the audience will notice. Number two, for your talks from this point on, do a handout, pass the handout, and have your answers, have a glass of water. Number three, rehearse, and rehearse, think in terms of chunks or ideas, not words. Because most people think in terms of like the word, I have to say the right word instead of like, what's the outcome here? When I think about outcome or the chunks, the sections, then it's easier for you.
Man, that's awesome answer. I love how you answer questions like, I mean, you just nailed it, dude. There is that.
Well, I have a tiny little bit of experience in mistakes.
Yeah, man.
Just tiny little bit.
Phenomenal, dude. Phenomenal. That is a good place for us to begin to close here. Let me just say, On behalf of everybody who's commenting and posting questions, I really appreciate that because, especially in this live chat, your name is right beside the question. You're being vulnerable, you're being open and honest and asking these questions that might not be easy to ask. And you're helping a lot of other people as well, not just yourself, because there's just about every question we've answered tonight. I know most of the people on here had that same question too. So we really do appreciate you guys that are active and are asking. And I make a note of every question that's asked here. I archive it, and I want to make sure that we get to it at least eventually. Stick with us on every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central Time. We're right here at Ask Dr. Zaino Live. Go ahead and scroll down. You'll see in that live chat I've posted the link for Roberto's gift that he has for you tonight. You have 48 hours for that. Go check that out right now. I highly recommend it. And then Dr. Zaino, anything in closing?
No, thanks once again, Roberto. We appreciate you. It's always good, when Roberto's on. Again, we look forward to you guys going to Houston for the Carol Thought Leader Seminar. If we don't see you in Houston, then at least take part, do something.
Yeah.
Don't you gotta change your discipline. So one thing I want to, like Roberto, when they ask a question, what's he do to get ready into state? What I see is a bunch of mini disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is, when you add a discipline and you keep that consistency of disciplines, each discipline you add, it's logarithmic. It gets better and better. So one of the keys to success is those mini disciplines. You're right. He doesn't have to do any of that. It's easy to do what he does, but it's also easy not to say incantations. But the dramatic compounding effect over years and years is the difference of Roberto being where he is today, or maybe just an average speaker who people kind of like that never really reached his true potential. So never underestimate the little disciplines in your life. So I'll see you guys. Part of the discipline is Wednesday night. We're here together. So make sure Wednesday night, tell friends, tell everybody. I'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks, Roberto. Thanks, Tabor.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Peace.
Have a good night.